From Andy, 1. All right, so while we get Piper set up, my name is Loic Maestracci. I'm the founder of Music Expo, and as of today, now we do Music Expo online. So thanks with us. Thanks for joining us. If you were at the earlier session, you already know Piper Payne. If you don't, please welcome Piper Payne and tap a 1 or a clap for Piper. We've also joined today by Robin Rummers. Robin, where are you, by the way?
I'm in Miami, actually.
So, Robin Rummers is really cool guy, and he's a mixing engineer
Mm-hmm.
and software developer, or product manager, or product owner, or co-founder of an amazing company called Limpwing Audio, who's been on with us on this journey now for a year. Actually, we started collaborating back last year at this time of the year for my Music Expo Miami. They make awesome plugins that save a lot of time. Actually, as part of the digital bag, you can download a free 30-day trial of any of their plugins. And also, they're running a raffle, and you can register for free to basically win one of their plugins. It will be the plugin of your choice. So the information is on the event page, where you need the password protected page. So head there to register, or we'll drop the link here to the raffle so everybody can join. And Piper Payne dials from Nashville. She has a studio in Nashville, in San Francisco, or the Bay Area. And and I'll pass it to the two of you now. She's going to explain how to run the session. She's going to share in the chat room a link to a web page where you can listen to the session in high definition, because it's a mastering session, and realize that Zoom is not that great for audio. I mean, it's good enough, but when we're having a mastering session, we better have better audio. So Piper, Robin, I pass it to you.
Hey, thanks very much. I'm just making sure for some reason the link is not, it's just beach balling me right now. So I'm gonna send it to you via email, Loic, so you can just put it in the chat for me, so it's a little bit easier. And then we obviously have a ton of stuff to go through and not very much time, so I'm gonna talk really, really fast. And if there's anything that comes up for you during this session, make sure that you get in touch with me. You can find me on the internet. My first name is Piper. My last name is Payne. If you use Google, as I do, you can just put that in the search bar, and you can find me on the internet and ask me any questions you want at a later date. And I'm so happy and so excited to be the longest running, I think, Music Expo alumni. I think that is a title I'm allowed to have. And
Yes.
and anyway, I've known Robin forever, and so I'm so glad and grateful that we are here on this call together. But I'll just tell you a little bit about myself, and then we've got my partner Catherine over here watching for questions, etc. So she'll keep an eye on the questions for me, so I can just keep on talking, which is what everybody loves, right? And that was a joke. It's really hard to tell jokes over Zoom when you can't hear people laughing.
Ask if you're laughing, drop a 2.
Thank you. Don't drop 2s. Drop a figurative 2, not a literal 2. Okay.
Yeah, or a smiley. Some people are. Here you have it. Everybody's having reaction. Good reaction.
Okay, so mastering. That's what I do. That's my career. I'm a mastering engineer. I make records for a living. I also do a few other things. I spend a ton of time in the vinyl world. Making vinyl records and opening a vinyl record pressing plant here in Nashville. I'll tell you about that in just a second, like why I'm here in Nashville and what the heck I'm doing, because you all know me from the Bay Area. And I'm still repping my Oakland shirt today. Bicycle coffee, gotta love it. But my studio around this time last year, my studio Nito Mastering joined the Infrasonic Sound family. So it is now considered the 3rd location of Infrasonic Sound. So we have LA, Nashville, and now Oakland. The lathe is based here in Nashville, and that's where I've been getting a ton of vinyl work. So my studio in Oakland is still exactly as it is. Big, beautiful speakers, big console, everybody knows that one. But it is It's my pleasure to now be able to work out of the Nashville studio that we have pretty much all the same equipment, same monitoring, same everything, and be able to service our Nashville clients as well out this way. So yeah, we cut lacquer out of the studio in Nashville, still have all the same equipment. And it just so happens that I was here right when quarantine stuff started. So in the meantime, I've been going to the studio regularly, making sure that my mastering clients are taken care of. But one cool thing that we were able to do in quarantine was finally hook up our cute little API console and get that running. And so now we're doing a stereo summing service online for those of you who are not able to make it into your studios where you would have usually been summing through an analog console. We can take care of your, we just basically take the stems, make sure that it's got some nice warm analog glue on it, and send your mix right back to you. Works really well for folks in the DIY field as well. And so anyway, I've got just a little bit of time to tell you about mastering, and I'm not actually in my mastering studio. Just wanted you to know where I am and what the heck I'm doing here. I have my mastering set up here though. So when we launch the Audiomovers app, and I drop that link into the chat, you'll be able to hear the mix and the master. And then we're also going to talk a lot about mastering tools and the way that we listen when we're mastering records. So just show of hands, give me a 3 if you have ever been in a mastering session before or like know anything about what I'm talking about at all. Okay, got a lot of 3s. Give me a 4 if you either know absolutely nothing or you are brand new at this, or you're not a mastering engineer, never wanted to know anything about mastering, just thought I had a cool name and wanted to tune in. Cool. Awesome. Okay, we got some 3-4s. Okay, nice. Nice. Oh, and a deuce. Okay, so mastering, I'll just kind of start from the beginning. Mastering is all about quality control. It's getting that record out of the creative phase and into the manufacturing phase. So we're not necessarily finishing the record because the record's not done until the album is out in the world. Artist is super happy with it. Listeners love it and it's selling. I believe that mastering is not about finishing the record or making the record loud or like polishing or whatever that is. I believe that mastering is about format conversion, so taking a whole bunch of mixes, getting them put together into a full cohesive album, or maybe it's a bunch of mixes on different formats, like a couple of them are on tape, a couple of them are high res, a couple of them you just had a CD demo from 20 years ago, and we're getting it ready to go out into the world, and so we have to make sure that we keep in mind the sounds of all of those different formats. They all sound different. Doesn't mean they're limitations necessarily, it's just that they all sound different, and that they are going to end up on a format out there in the world that is completely unknown to us. We don't know if people are listening in their car. We don't know if they're listening on a big, beautiful speaker system. We don't know if they're listening on the radio. And so what we need to do is create a master that's going to sound as good as possible for as many listening environments, going to translate to as many different places as possible, and also keeping in mind that all those different formats have different sounds. Okay, so there's a lot to that. And I am obviously, mastering is all I do. I don't mix records. I don't really make a lot of recordings anymore either. And I was a drummer a long time ago, and now I just master other people's records, which is super fun, and it's a really great place to be. I'll totally acknowledge that there are other people in the world that mix records and master records, record, mix, and master, or are artists and they master their own stuff. And that's completely fine. It's just that mastering is, there's a few really important things to keep in mind about your environment and how you're mastering these records if you don't have a $500,000 studio sitting in front of you. What you need to keep in mind is that mastering is those things I said. It's quality control, it's format conversion. It's also a new and fresh perspective from someone who listens in a different way than you do. And these records that I get a new album every day to master, and sometimes a handful of singles as well. And these are the first times that I'm meeting these albums and these songs. And so my gut reaction, my first thought is, oh, this needs this, or oh, this could be this, or oh, this is amazing. I don't even need to do anything with it. Those reactions are because I've never heard it before, and because I have listened to as many different sounds in many different songs in that genre and sounds in that genre, and I know what that quality sound in that genre is, and so I know how to take your album and translate that. The buttons, the knobs, the EQ, compression, all that stuff really means nothing at the end of the day if I don't know where your album could be or is supposed to go. So the goal, hopefully, if you're working on your own stuff, is just get away from it for a while, put it on the shelf for a month. Don't listen to it. Don't spend any time with it. If you're going to have to master stuff by yourself, these are some best practices. So yeah, get some distance from it, get some other perspectives. Definitely, I would say, don't necessarily master something that you just mixed in the same studio, because you're not mastering it, you're just mixing it louder. I would say that the decisions that you're making in your mixing studio are such that it's limited to what you're hearing coming out of your speaker, you're limited to what you're hearing on your headphones and what the room is telling you and what your gear is telling you. And one of the beauties of mastering in a different location is that it's going to tell you different things. It's going to inform you. What you're hearing coming out of the speakers is going to inform you on what to do with the album moving forward. Okay, so I'm trying to think. Robin, do you want to say something about what you guys do and some of the Leapwing things while I get this Audiomovers plugged in?
Sure, but I definitely don't want to take up. I don't want to take up your time, but yeah, like go ahead and just tell me whenever you're ready. So, yeah, well, thanks. I've known Piper for a very long time. Hold on, let me put the video. Yeah. So yeah, we've known each other for a very long time, and we started Leapwing in 2015 to try to kind of come up with new innovative tools that didn't really exist in the analog domain. So try to come up with new ideas and ways to improve sound, and that's what we've been doing. Been focusing a lot on like mixing and mastering, and that's in a nutshell what we've been up to.
And I think I will just like give a little bit of love to Leapwing, because your plugins are, I think personally, the best sounding mastering tools out there. And like I always say about Leapwing is that you guys make tools that don't exist already. Anybody could just say, oh, I want to make a digital Pultec EQ, or I want to make another delay, or I want to like make some other stereo widener or whatever. But you guys have really focused on tools for engineers, not just mastering engineers, but tools for engineers that don't exist already, or things that you can't do in the analog domain. So can you maybe speak a little bit about that and like some of the focus that you guys do on, or some of the ways that you guys focus on quality and are able to deliver some of the best sounding plugins I think are out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like somebody here just mentioned like Stage One, for example, that in itself like took a lot of kind of research, a lot of tuning, because I think like what goes into a lot of this development of developing digital tools, or well, any tools, is like you really have to listen and tune each of the parameters, because our goal was not to give the end user, 500 different parameters that they each have to tune themselves, but we wanted to give easy to use controls. But a lot of things have to be done in the background to make that possible. It's like we do listening tests in mastering studios, in like very high quality studios, and A/B, make sure we're not fooling ourselves, like blind tests. And yeah, I think that's definitely an important part of development, is really listening with also other people who have really good ears. And I think getting that feedback in is absolutely key. And of course, also having a really good development team that tries to look at the boundaries of digital technology or analog technology. And I think just a lot of brainstorming and figuring out what is it that we're missing in terms of tools, and how can we make that happen. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, as soon as my email actually pops up, I will pop this link into Audiomovers. Oh, there it goes. Oh, awesome. Things are just really slow today for some reason. I think it's just kind of a dreary day. Yeah, so, and like Robin said, there's not any real, there's not like any one tool that fixes anything or fixes the music or whatever. I mean, the only thing you can do is try and get the recording proper and use the best tools and the best resources that you have at your disposal to try and get that sound that you're looking for. And mastering is not always going to help that, but it is nice to have some tools that will like fix serious issues that are, you know, with a stereo image, or fix, you know, like there's one of the things I love about, I think it's Stage One, has the tool where you can actually, there's like a filter for what's going on in the center versus the sides, and how you can push stuff back and forwards. And that is really, really valuable. But you can't be too heavy-handed with it. You got to be really, really careful so that you don't collapse the important, you know, the importance stereo image that you've crafted. Okay, so now that this is awake, there we go, Loic. I think I email you, Loic, more than anybody else. There we go. There's the link. Hold on.
Precious. We're using every single tool available on the internet right now.
Yeah, no kidding. And my internet's like, I think I'll check your Google Drive permissions before I send this email. Weird. Anyway, so let's get back to mastering. Let's talk a little bit about EQ, compression, stereo manipulation, phase, things like that. Those are, and loudness, of course. Those are the tools that I'm using, and we as mastering engineers use to master the record. So when you get a record, you get a collection of songs, you get a bunch of mixes. Sometimes we're able to talk to the artist or the producer or the mixing engineer ahead of time and say like, this mix is all the rest of the mixes are perfect and fine. This particular mix sounds a little bit dull, or sounds a little bit like maybe you forgot to put the vocal in the song and it clearly needs one. Or maybe there's like an issue with the drums, like the hi-hats or something are too essy. And so in that case, you end up having to make adjustments to if you can't fix that mix, we end up having to make adjustments to the whole album in order to compromise to the lower quality sound of that one song. So sometimes it's best to have a conversation ahead of time with your mastering engineer, make sure that you can chat with them and talk about like what your goals are for the project. If the goal is to have the whole album play through cohesively from start to finish, and that one song is going to stick out like a sore thumb, maybe you need to look at remixing, things like that. We don't always start with that. We don't always start with like, hey, let's remix your whole project right now. It's not our goal. We don't want to do that. It's just that in order for the whole project to be as beautiful as you want it to be, sometimes there's some more steps that need to happen. Look, did you get the link?
Yes, I got the link. Can you tell, before I drop the link in the chat for everybody, can you explain how it's going to work?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to explain how it should work. We will see what happens today. So what you have there is actually a really cool collaboration tool. And this is made by a company called Audiomovers. And it's a little plugin called Listen To. And what happens is I put that on the output of the master output of my DAW, and it's transmitting audio over the internet to you, who just click on that link and it will open up a browser, or you can paste the link into your browser, and you should be able to hear high quality audio coming out of my workstation straight into your browser. So it doesn't cost any money for you, the listener. You don't have to download any crazy apps or anything like that. It's just a cute little AAU, VST, AAX plugin that goes on the output of your DAW.
So I think what would be great, Piper, is if you can maybe play a little bit, and then we ask everybody if they can hear. Like maybe we ask them to drop a 1 if they can hear it, to make sure that it's working for everybody.
Okay, here we go. I'm gonna give it to you a little bit lower volume because I don't want to. I'm gonna send this lower levels because I don't want to mess up your speakers or anything. So this is pretty low, and here it goes. Let's find out if this is working. Can we hear it?
I'm not hearing it. No, okay. I don't see the volume coming through. It says it's connected.
Hold on, I have to start the transmission. That would help.
Okay. And now, is it starting?
Go ahead and refresh your browser.
Okay. Same link.
Same link.
Okay. Refresh your browser. I refresh, but it's not playing yet.
You see it? Can you see where it says start listening?
It says connected. That's hold on. Play. It says playhead position at 3 seconds.
That's pretty weird. Catherine, can you see it? Did you see the chat go in?
I'm reposting the link. Tima, I just put the link here. Do you see it?
Yeah, I see it from Lilith to all panels.
Okay, click on that link for me. We're gonna troubleshoot from here too. I'm just gonna let it keep playing here, and we'll figure that out along the way.
The playhead position.
The player's called.
Sorry.
Yes.
It is connected but not. There it goes. Mine's transmitting.
Yeah. Okay. So you can hear it.
Well, sort of. It just fell.
Okay. I'm gonna send a little bit more audio, so it's gonna be a little louder here.
It says connected.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Sure.
We have good internet connection here. I'm not sure what's going on. It says reconnecting. That's pretty weird.
My bad, guys. I'm literally cannot do 3 things at the same time. I was sending the link to all the panelists, but not the attendees. Do you have everybody has the link? Drop a 1.
Oh, we have.
Okay, great. Can you hear something? It says. Okay, so everybody has the link now, so that's a good start. Now play.
It's playing music right now.
And if you can hear it, drop a 2. Like stereo.
Did I just see that Jules Stannon is in here?
All right, so it looks like Spectrum, the originator, can hear. All right, well, as long as the attendees can hear it.
Go ahead, just refresh your browser. If you end up losing the audio for some reason, just do me a favor, refresh your browser, because we have a good stable connection in here, but I don't know what else is happening on the internet in here today. My mother may be upstairs watching Dead to Me or something. I don't know. Okay, so I'm just gonna let this keep playing.
Got it.
All right.
Drop a 2 if you can hear.
Got it?
2.
Okay.
Number 2. Yeah. I want to see 2s. 2s. Okay, great. Looks like it's working for most of the people. So let's go. Don't worry about it.
So now it's a little bit louder. I'm going to drop the level down again, though, so that we can match the mix and master in level, so that you guys can hear the difference between the mix and the master. I can't turn the mix up any further, but I can turn the master down to match a little bit, okay? So, and I'm not going to try and do something crazy like screen share or anything. I'll actually just grab this little device that I've got here and put it up on the console, so you guys can see what I'm doing on the screen. I know it might be a little bit hard to see, but I don't want to risk putting too much on the internet bandwidth, even though I think I have 300 megs up and down, which is pretty darn good. All right, so let's talk mastering further. So we talked a little bit about how you have lots of different tools. We talked about what mastering is: quality control, format conversion, finishing the creative process finishing the creative record-making process, beginning the manufacturing process, and trying as best as possible to keep the beauty and the vibe and all of the good sound that you have in your album. So how do we do that? We have a whole bunch of different mixes. They all come from different sources. Like I might have gotten 5 songs from Catherine's studio. I might have gotten 3 songs from Robin. Loic might have sent me his midnight house mix of a different song, and Hannah sent me a iPhone recording that that was the only track the only version of that particular song that she has, and she really wants that on the album. So how do we make all those songs go together? They all sound like different artists. They're all going to sound like they belong on a different album. And so what we have is EQ, dynamics, processing, which would be like compression, limiting, multi-band, or expanders, things like that. And then we have stereo and phase manipulation. I like to talk in my little mastering talks. I like to speak about stereo and phase and mono, because it's a thing that, especially folks that are working at home or working on headphones or working on in a speaker system that's maybe not ideal, it's a thing that gets overlooked a lot. And so what happens is, if your speakers aren't set up exactly, in phase, then they are, they're not going to be telling you what's happening exactly in the center. What we know is that stereo is a psychoacoustic phenomenon where the timing of maybe the same sound, the timing reaches your ears in a different way, or it's two separate timed sounds that are reaching your ears at a different time. So things that are mono are, in theory, they're presented to you right up the center at the same time, if they reach your ears at exactly the same time, or they're emitted from the speakers at exactly the same time. So those are going to be things like kick drum, probably snare drum, vocal, which is usually things that are right up the center. Those are the things that have to be what we call mono compatible. So on most consoles, we have this cute little button that says mono. What that does is it says, okay, stuff coming out of speaker A and stuff coming out of speaker B, the things that are being sent there. Now we want you guys to come out of speaker A and speaker B at exactly the same time. We're going to collapse that stereo, and all of the things that are different are now going to go away. So only the things that are common are going to stay in the mix, in the mono, okay? And what's going to happen is you're going to lose all these beautiful like synths and reverbs and things that are probably really important to your mix. Those are going to go away, because things that are not common to the mono are going to be, they're going to be missing when you play back on a small speaker system, when you play back on your phone, when you play back on some radio and some internet radio, even Zoom. Zoom is actually really, really hard to get to play back stereophonic sound. So if you're trying to play a track or you're trying to send a mix, even if you're playing live over Zoom, you should know that you have to make sure that your mix is either mono compatible or you're sending audio from a different source. So I think I'm getting that everybody's got this song and nobody needs to hear this 5,000 times. But I am, I'm sending this over Audiomovers because I don't trust that Zoom is actually sending you guys a stereo sound. Okay, so when you're mixing things that are supposed to show up in the center, trying as much as possible to make sure that when you hit that mono sum button, that that you're not losing information. When I say that, I mean, when you're listening on your big speakers or when you're listening on headphones and you play back a sound that has a lot of low end in it and you hit the mono button, all of a sudden your low end went away, it's probably because you have some phase manipulation happening in the low end or low mids, and what you're going to do is you're going to lose that impact. So the other reason why mono is extremely important in your mixing is because when you have a mono sound coming out of the speakers, the same sound at the same time reaching the listener at the same time, that's more impactful because the transient is hitting the transient's hitting the listener at the same time and then coupling, so it's going to be more loud, more impactful. And what will happen is if you have something that is shifted just a little bit in time to make that stereo widening feel, it's going to end up losing the correlation of the transient. So it's going to end up sounding smeared and definitely not as loud or not as impactful. Okay, so these are things that are really, really important to keep in mind. The other tools are just simply EQ, compression, and limiting. A couple things to know about mastering and how mastering engineers work. We work in series, so our mastering consoles usually have like EQ compressor, EQ compressor, EQ compressor. They are probably not going to have like EQ, 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 compressor, compressor, compressor. A lot of people always ask me like what order to put the plugins in if you're trying to master in the box. This is not a rule of thumb all the time, but I usually EQ before I compress. And I will often have another EQ just after it, just to be sure that I didn't lose any, you know, any like, when I'm doing any compression, I don't end up losing the beauty of the, you know, the fully balanced sound before it was compressed. Because a lot of times when I'm compressing stuff, it's so that it's more of a vibe. A lot of mastering engineers, you know, there's like this other misconception that mastering engineers just like slam stuff or crush stuff or whatever. I actually push a lot of gain through the console rather than compressing. I just have a little bit of gain added, and controlling just a tiny bit along the way. And I end up doing a little bit more limiting and high frequency limiting than I do actual compression. Okay. So there's lots of different ways to do it. There's a million different ways to master a record. And I want to play a couple things for you here just so you can hear what the difference is between a mix and a master, like what one song sounded like that was part of a whole record. This one song was, you know, there's a lot of different instruments in it. It's pretty deep and pretty dense song. And the mixing engineer and I have, and the producer as well, have a great rapport. And so we go back and forth a lot on things like this. And so I think this was actually the second mix of this particular song. And that's the one that we ended up mastering. But I'm just gonna play very quickly a mix and a master, and then we're gonna start taking some questions. Okay? So I'm gonna bring you over here just so you can see. I'm just gonna put this right in front of us. See, maybe you can. I also just had foot surgery, so please forgive me. But this is there's the console, or there's the. Can you all see? Drop a 1 if you can see something. Yay? Nay? Okay, cool. Sorry, I don't want to overload my little computer with too many Zoom apps. I do this a lot with clients, and usually we have no issues, but I just don't want to chance it with too much stuff going on here. So I am speaking to you from behind the computer, from behind the iPad, so that I can look at the computer and at you guys here. So as you can see up here, this track up here, stick of butter, right? It's not. It's actually nice and dynamic. It's got beautiful program dynamics. And I actually should tell you guys that I know for sure that a Leapwing plugin was used on this one, and it would have been stage 1, because I felt that her vocal could have used a little bit more chest and a little bit more presence. And that is one thing that I'm able to do with stage 1, and to pop that vocal forward a little bit as well. So good on you, Robin, for making that plugin, because it really saved the day on this one. Okay, so this mix down, this is the mix down here. So I'm going to go back and volume match that master. And then, so this is the mix. Drop a 1 if you can hear, this is the mix. Okay. And this is the master. It's going to take a second to kick over. Should be about the same level. Oh, sorry, the screen's a little blurry. I'm going to just volume match these for you guys. All right, that's the mix. Here's the master. So I'm trying to volume match the vocal, because that's the thing that's going to be most telling of what the difference is between the mix and the master for y'all. All right, so we can hear that there's a whole bunch of different stuff happening in this, right? We can hear that there is a kick drum, snare drum, lots of different synths, lots of different things swimming around in the stereo image. We've got a vocal, we have gang vocals, we have some backups even in the chorus. I'm going to start the song here at the beginning again, just so that we can hear kind of what's happening right from the beginning. But my question to you all is going to be, can you hear one particular instrument? It's really low level in the mix. One particular instrument that comes out quite a lot in the master. So again, here's the mix. Okay, and here comes the master.
It looks like some
Same.
don't have sound.
Oh, some people don't have sound. Okay, let me double check. Do some people actually have sound though?
Nothing streams.
It's transmitting.
By the way, for everybody, I recommend to use Chrome of Fireworks, and you will have a pop-up that says, now it's connected.
Okay, let's try that one more time real quick. Okay, so here's the mix.
Play.
It's gonna have a little delay.
I heard just a bang.
So that's the mix. Can everybody hear the mix? Yay or nay? If not, I'll give up.
Working.
Still not working. Nothing. Nope. Wow, it's crazy. Did we lose it?
Is
That's
it
so nuts.
Do you want to resend me the link?
It's the same link. It's going to be the same link. Flowick rocks. And I just restarted the transmission. Let's see if this is a little bit more solid. Everybody refresh your browser.
Okay, it says disconnected right now.
Okay,
Refresh.
should be refresh your browser. I'm so sorry about
It's
this.
disconnected.
Usually, so it's disconnected.
Yes.
Well, that's not the best. That's definitely not the best commercial for Audiomovers, is it? Okay, so let's go back and maybe just take some questions real quick, and maybe we can try this again toward the end, unless it's working now.
Do you want to send me a new link?
No, it's going to be the same link no matter what.
Yeah.
It's not going to change or help.
There's
Let me
this-
see. Okay, it's like people are actually. It looks like some people have it. I'm going to just let it play.
Okay, everyone, drop a 0 if you play, if you hear, and a 1. Sorry, drop a 1 if you hear.
There's going to be a little delay. Okay. It still says disconnected. All right, screw it. Sometime let's do this again, and we'll make sure we can do a proper demo for you. Sorry about that. So let's start with some questions.
So we have a few questions in the Q&A, and I'll let
Just tell me the questions.
Yeah. First question from Albert. Mastering on headphones, advantageous or not?
Albert, mastering on headphones, advantageous or not? If headphones are the best you've got and they're more full range and they will tell you more about what's happening in the music, totally fine. There are a couple things you need to keep in mind though. Number one, you're not going to hear proper bass no matter what. There's literally distance and physical distance between where your cans are and where your eardrums are, and that distance can be faked to be able to give you low end, but it's not actually going to give you the real feeling of sitting in a studio in front of a pair of full range monitors that gives you that, like, makes the bass will change, where the bass will jiggle your pant leg, or you can feel the vibration in the floor, or your studio mate next door starts banging on the wall and says, turn it down. You'll never get that experience. I think that mastering on headphones is fine. Again, if it's the best system that you have, a really good pair of headphones that you know well, it's completely fine. But you have to remember as well that when you have headphones on, the center image and the vocal is going to be right in the middle of your ears. It's not out in front of you the way that speakers are. Speakers sit out in front of you, so the image is out in front of you, so the vocal is out in front of you. And so what you're going to end up doing is trying to suppress that center image because it's going to present in your ears. It's going to present really loud, and you're going to keep trying to turn it down. What you're going to end up with is this like weirdly like stereo smiley face thing happening when you go to play it out on a big speaker system or out in the world. You're going to lose the weight in the center image. Okay, second question.
Tuning control room versus tuning and mastering room.
Hector, tuning a control room versus tuning a mastering room. So a control room is like a mixing space / tracking space or maybe a flex room where you often have different engineers coming in to work out of there. You often have clients that are sitting on a couch in the back, and all that stuff in a control room. It's all about the vibe, right? It's all about the hang and the listening to the live thing happening and hearing it on the big, beautiful speakers and going like, oh my God, this is awesome. We're having so much fun. Not that same conversation in the mastering room. In mastering, it's really all about the one listening position to give all of the best quality linearity, all of the possible acoustics changes that you can make in the room. Is all about that one listening spot. So you're going to tune for one listener in a mastering room, the mastering engineer. Usually it's going to be to their liking. And in a mixing control room, it's usually done by, it's usually the sound is whatever the chief engineer likes. And it's also all about making sure that everybody in the room can hear pretty well. Whereas, there are some amazing control rooms, though. I mean, that sound better than a lot of mastering rooms. I think that, that you just have to keep in mind who's really listening and what's the point. Okay, next question.
Next question. Separate masters, separate waves for CD vinyl, etc. Streaming. What are you sending out? What are you sending out that's different between vinyl masters, CD masters, and streaming masters?
What am I sending out? Who asked that question? Do we know?
I'm sorry.
What are we sending out for CD masters versus vinyl masters versus streaming? Failing creative. Thanks for that question. It's a good one. So what I'm doing in the vinyl world is completely different than what we do in digital world. CD master is usually, it is 44.1 16-bit Red Book audio standard. We create what's called a DDP, and that is what's put together for CD replication. Replication is when you generally make more than 300 copies. They make a glass master, and they take what I make, which is a set of files that describe the disk description protocol, DDP. And they take those files and they put them onto, through some software, they create a glass master, and that's what they then make stampers and stamp out the CD with. Not unlike how vinyl is made. Actually, it's just a different formulation, different tools that make it. When we make that CD master, usually it's a file that's dumbed down from the high-res master that we make. So when I created this master that you see here, that is a high. Okay, I'll speak closer to the iPad. When I create that master for Dakota's Magic Machine, that's a high-res master. That's 96 kilohertz, 24-bit wave file. I received from them a 48 kilohertz, 24-bit mix. So why do you ask, did I then make a 96K masters? Because I recorded it back in through the analog console at 96K. So that's the 96K master. That's not from a 96K source. It's just that now we can record all of the transformers and resistors and tubes and beautiful sounds of the analog gear. We can record that at high res no matter what sample rate the mix came in at. Now, then I have to make a CD version of that and all the way down to 44.1 kilohertz 16-bit, which is a far compromised sound from the high res. So that's what goes out onto CD. Now streaming, there are a few different distributors and companies that will actually take a 96 kilohertz 24-bit master or even higher, 192, whatever. Some of them will stream DSD for you. And those are some of the streaming companies that we love. Some of them only take that 4416 file. Some of them will only take MP3s, which is really, really sad for my heart. But we will submit to streaming whatever the streaming company will take. So some of the ones that are good, I think, would be DistroKid, Bandcamp. Those will actually take the high-res master I give them, and they'll output the high-res master out into the world. Whereas some of the others, such as TuneCore, CD Baby, they will only take a 4416 file, which is really sad. Now for vinyl, we create a vinyl master. Now that is basically, we take a lacquer blank, which is a piece of metal with lacquer, plain, unblemished lacquer, that we cut into it with a cutting stylus on a lathe. So the blank turns, a stylus cuts the grooves into the record. Then from there it goes to the electroprocessing company, and they will make a metal negative of that. And then that is a couple more steps, and then that is what goes on to the stamper, to becomes the stamper for the pressing machine, and that's what makes vinyl. What you have to keep in mind is that what happens in the digital world and the vinyl world are completely different, because they're totally different formats. They play differently. One is a mechanical format, one is a digital, simply ones and zeros playback. And so those, we make completely different masters. Some of the limitations on vinyl masters are going to be something like the level can't be nearly as loud. It has to be, can't be as dynamic as a digital master either. Technically, it's a misnomer to think that vinyl is more dynamic. It's not. And then we have to watch the really high frequency and the really low frequency, basically bandpass those. And then we have to de-ess the top end and make sure that the bass is mono-compatible. Okay, next question.
When do you make a decision to send the mix back for remixing? When do you know?
When do I make the decision to send a mix back for remixing, and when do I not? For the most part, I don't. It's also, again, a kind of a misnomer that we have to send mixes back for remixing all the time. It's maybe one, sorry, who? Mark. It's maybe one in 10 projects has like one song that might have a problem. So we're thinking, in theory, like 1 in 100 songs. It doesn't matter who the client is. They could be super high end, super low end. Doesn't matter if they are paying a ton of money or are a budget client. We will make sure that the project is as good as it possibly can be. And if that means requesting a remix, then we will. It's never, though, exactly in that form. It is, what do you want to achieve? Okay, you gave me a mix that I can't really achieve that with. Do you want to remix it? It's never like, oh, fuck this mix, it's got to go back. Never like that. All right, we got 5 minutes left.
A lot of questions.
Tons of questions.
Next one. What DAWs do you recommend for mastering, and which DAW are you using? Denise, Adam, and Salvador.
Okay, Denise, Adam, and Salvador all asked for what DAW am I using for mastering. I use a DAW called Reaper. There's a ton of reasons for it. The most basic reason is that it helps me get my work done, and it doesn't give me problems, and it doesn't crash. I recommend Reaper. It's a great DAW for mastering. It's not very expensive. It helps me get my work done, and it doesn't crash.
Do you ever listen to things in the car, and should people listen to things in the car?
I listen to things in the car sometimes. Usually it's whatever Catherine over there wants to listen to. That's what we listen to.
Do you use it as a source for monitoring?
Of course, when I mean, every once in a while, yeah, I'll totally put something on and go like, yeah, does this vibe in the car? Fuck yeah, awesome. But for the most part, I listen to my one set of speakers in my one room, and I know what that sounds like. And so I don't have to make decisions anymore. I mean, obviously for the first few years while I was learning how to master records, this was, ages ago, I would always check my masters in the car before I would send them out. Always. I'd always take it home and check it before I'd send it. And that was back when we made CD master or CD references anyway. So I would take the CD with me and listen to it in the car on the way to the mailbox, or I would, take it home and then send it out the next morning. Robin, remember those days? How beautiful was that?
Yeah, great.
Okay, 4 questions.
MC Val wants to know what the average mastering rates are.
MC Val wants to know what the average mastering rates are in general. Mastering rates can be anything to anything. I can tell you what my mastering rates are, which are low for the LA and Nashville area, but high for the Bay Area, Oakland, San Francisco, and other smaller markets like that. So I usually end up being around $150 to $180 per song. Obviously I have discounts for students. I always try and take care of folks that are indie musicians and or having a hard time paying. I will always have a conversation about it, and make sure that I can service the project if I can. I can't master records for $75, $80 a track. It's just not economical. If you pay attention to how much it costs to run a business and run a studio and have assistants and contribute to the rest of a actual mastering firm and everything else, you can't do it for less than $80 a track. It's just not possible. Now, do I think that anybody should charge $600-$700 a song? Absolutely not. I think that that's way too much. So in general, you're going to find quality mastering anywhere between $100 and $200 a track is not out of the question. It's definitely worth paying for if you're liking that person's work. I will say as well, always call the engineer. Don't just assume that they're going to be a ton of money, or don't just assume that they're going to be super cheap. Call the engineer or talk to their manager and say, this is who I am, this is what I budgeted for. Can we work with this or whatever? You never know. I mean, sometimes I have a really busy month, or sometimes I have a really slow month, and we can definitely work something out. But I just personally believe that the amount of time that it takes to master a song should be reflective of what an hourly rate is. And it just takes a little while.
Keith is interested in how much hardware versus software you use.
Keith wants to know how much hardware versus software I use when I master. Mostly outboard analog engineer, although most projects end up with some plugin at some point. So that's going to be a hybrid situation where I'm going to use, I'll use Leapwing when it's needed. I will definitely, be using a couple of the other, the big mastering plugins. I don't need to name them right now. But most of my decision and most of my sound comes from my analog mastering console. And every song gets mastered by itself. It's its own thing. It's not like a set it and forget it kind of thing. Every song has different settings. So it might have, this song might need this EQ, whereas that one doesn't. Next question.
Question about measurements for loudness range.
Okay, measurements for loudness range. Check out the dynamic range penalty. We can I'll totally stay on Slack for a while and continue answering questions there, no problem. But there's I can't remember what it's called. It's like dynamic range penalty or loudness penalty. Thank you, Adam. Loudness penalty. Check that one out. That'll really help you. So nothing, don't go crazy above about -14 LUFS if you're going to be streaming stuff. Yep. And one more question, then look.
Mixing for all devices or just mixing in your speakers for your.
I already answered that question about mixing for all devices. Go ahead, look.
Let's move. Yeah, we need to wrap up because
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine. Catherine is a wonderful audio engineer out of Arizona. She's still in Arizona? Yeah. And she's hiding behind the camera. I don't know why, because I think it would be an amazing privilege to see her, but that's okay. I know her. It's great. So you guys, you can continue to ask your questions. Some of the questions were not answered. Please drop them in the Slack channel. We realized hey, Catherine, we realized this morning or the afternoon that we can only have one webinar at the same time. Apologies. We're going to have to figure out tonight how we change this for tomorrow. So bear with us, but everybody jump to Slack and ask your question. Keith, Kosh, Jojo, Nate, please ask your question there and we'll jump to the next session. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Hannah. Later.
Thank you. Bye.